Okay, so remember that they're changing my voice. So it's one of the so-called miracles of Christ, which is actually a figurative miracle, was turning water into wine. And when you look at what they're saying, you need to understand that there was a bunch of rape cult Romans who liked to pretend that they're superior. They like to force people of different ethnic groups and regions to kind of assimilate to their religions and their cults. And it's kind of one big religion to kind of force them to look up to them and their family lines or whatever, right? Something to that effect, because you can't really force someone to look up to you, at least at that point. Later on, maybe 100 years from now, they'll have some kind of technology that does something like that, right? But it's pitiful. I mean, we have to hook someone up to a machine to try to get them to look up to you. It's very depraved, very, very pitiful, very much a sign of failure. But you have to understand that. So when we get to Proverbs 23, and in reading this, it really makes me mad. I was provoked to a large degree. They do things like show me pictures of my grandmother burning. Okay, and she didn't die by fire, but she passed away, and they try to put it in my head. Now, I caution you to be about being afraid of them. I'm not afraid of them in the slightest. Okay, if you're afraid to feel the struggle of serving God, big mistake, okay? God is far more serious about punishing people than these people are. Okay, I'm sorry that your forefathers and mothers didn't think about, the consequences of bringing you into the world, into this very serious situation. But the situation is that under no circumstances can you fear these people more than God. Okay, you should fear what will happen, what if you don't obey God through me, okay? Far more than even begin, far more than you fear what will happen if you do. Okay, that's key in this. And the fact that you fear these kind of betas, these kind of Bill Gates guys, these King Charles and these kind of guys, Bibi Netanyahu, you name it, okay, terrorists or whoever else you fear, whoever other people you fear, okay, more than you fear God Almighty infuriates him. The fact that you fear what will happen to your children if they don't have food more than what will happen if they defy God infuriates God. Okay? And usually I don't kind of experience the bitterness of God in that particular way because I'm so busy trying to help people out. But every once in a while, it comes to like a head where there's like a conflict and they've gone to very profoundly perverse and wicked places in their discussion and in their provocations, and it caused me to say it. But anyway, without further ado, let me get this over with, so I can move on from this section, which has been difficult because of their technologies and their provocations to communicate. So I'm just going to read it through it first, and then we're going to go back and go over it, right? So this is Proverbs 23, going down to verse 29. It's talking about wine. It says, don't drink the wrong wine, right? Don't become one with the sinners, right? Don't yoke yourself to sinners, right? The wine is like the cause, right? So, Jesus shed his blood for God, right? See people in the military and gangs, police, just regular people kill their wives, whether they're shedding blood or they're getting killed or both for something other than God's cause, and it infuriates God because God's plan, right? The squirrels follow the plan, unless their brains are hacked by computers or put a chip or whatever these weirdos do, okay? The horses and all this stuff, the grass, okay, other than where man intervenes, okay? But when people kind of take it to the point where they have sex and reproduce outside of God's plan, when they do this stuff, it infuriates God, and obviously you have to obey God through me, okay? That's not the end of the world, okay? Humans aren't the same as other species, right? They have one King of Kings, right? Regardless of what other life forms are doing. That is the nature of humans, and I am the King of Kings, and I'm the last valid leader ever possible. People pretending otherwise, very, very much on the wrong side of the debate. So anyway, Proverbs 23, verse 29. Who has woe, who has sorrow, who has strife, who has complaints, who has needless bruises, who has bloodshot eyes, those who linger over wine, who go sample bowls of mixed wine. Do not gaze at wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a snake and poisons like a viper. Your eyes will see strange sights, and your mind will imagine confusing things. You will be like one sleeping on the high seas, lying on top of the rigging. They hit me, you will say, but I am not hurt. They beat me, but I do not feel it. When will I wake up so I can find another drink? Okay, so when we look at this thing, okay, obviously I want to remind you again that no one is more just than I am, no one will ever be. The discipline I've achieved, etc. I've disciplined myself to a T to be just. If I get angry, okay, so what? I mean, if you burn me with a fire and I scream, ouch, does it mean I'm not disciplined? No. Okay. If a bunch of wolves rush me and I back up and go, what, and take a defense, does it mean I'm not disciplined? No. So these just are reflexes. Okay. So when we're talking about this here, people who aren't just doing reflexes, who are actually in the repetition of rebellion against God, who have, live falsehood, right? Who love and live a lie, as they say, who practice, psychology instead of reality, practice propaganda instead of reality, you name it, right? Social norm fanaticism in the West is clearly white. Social norm fanaticism is the bell that rings the loudest, is a problem, and in most places, if not all places in the world as well. Okay, and again, I don't care about race. I'm even part white. I'm not part Asian. I'm not part Native American that I know of. I'm not part, Islander or whatever, right? I'm part white, and I make it clear to you, okay, who is the main aggressor and who isn't. Okay, and I don't care about race. I'm 42 years old. I don't look anywhere near as handsome as I used to look, and that's fine. Okay, anyone who would hold any attractive female hold that against me is an idiot. Okay, I have the greatest martial art belt in human history, the belt of righteousness of God, from God, the belt of being sabotaged as the top martial arts ever possible for God. Any female who would even think for a moment to desire another male more than me, okay, other than someone in the divine order who's obeying God through me, who's earned them as a wife or something, is utter trash. Squirrels know better. Dogs know better. Just utter filth, lower than a piece of dung on the ground to me. No offense to anybody. These are the facts. They need to be said. So it says, who has the woe, the sorrow? Right? Who has the strife, the complaints, the bruising in the spiritual realm? Their souls are bruised, like it says in Isaiah 1, right? Why do they persist in rebellion and they keep getting beat, in their mind, body, soul, and spirit, figuratively speaking, and certainly literally speaking when it comes to, the mind in certain ways, and the soul and the spirit, and so on and so forth, right? Why do they continue? Who has these problems, right? And it says, those who linger over wine, who sample bowls of mixed wine, those who take their wickedness and they mix it with, going after what's God's. Now, the wicked don't have a magic pass if they somehow manage to avoid what's God's. Like, everything is God's, right? So there's no way to avoid it. But if you go that distance, right, there's degrees of sin. If you go the distance, okay, to persecute the righteous, to get those attractive females, then you made a big mistake. Those who argue that magically all sin magically is the same, they're wrong. There's a reason why Stephen the martyr in Acts, in your own book, said that, in the story, he said that, the righteous one has come and you've even persecuted him, right? You even killed him, right? At that point that Jesus as a character of the story had been crucified. And this is the book of Acts I'm talking about. Okay, so he wasn't like, hey, all sins are equal, let bygones be bygones. He said, you people are stiff-necked and you always resist the Holy Spirit. And that's that's the key ingredient in what they call sampling mixed bowls of wine, because the wine stands for the cause, right? The blood of the saints, right? Drunk off the blood of the saints, the blood Jesus shed. The blood was shed in war against the Philistines and the Jebusites and the Amorites and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's key. And it says, don't gaze at it. Don't be impressed by it. Don't say, hey, that looks interesting. I should, don't lust after it. Don't chase after it. Don't pursue it. Don't yoke yourself to it. It says it in the end, it bites like a snake and poisons like a viper. It poisons your soul. It poisons your mind. It poisons your kids. It's far worse than getting AIDS is getting ill-gotten gains. People who get AIDS and die, you ask the average person with a good heart, and you say, that's sad, right? This child was born with AIDS and they died. And we hardly think of their ill-gotten gains. People have pursued ill-gotten gains to such a degree that it's clear, like rich people, right? Like internationalists. I mean, there's so many people, it's clear that they fucked up. People who have an attractive female in this day and age, when there's a lot less of them, and they all look like they lost their minds or something, and they're all gold diggers and stuff like this, okay, my goodness, are they poisoning themselves and their offspring? Okay, that outer appeal doesn't matter that much. Social norms don't matter that much. The opinions of rebels don't matter that much. Okay, they basically don't matter at all. What matters is you're poisoning your souls and your offspring's souls.